watch new Survivor. We're stuck in a bad dream. So we're watching an old season with a silly pirate theme. Of course there's a new theme song, but it's as half-assed as our plans. And then something, mumbo something, a word that rhymes with plans. John will make some dumb jokes. Andy likes to yell and curse. Something about some backup host. How could hell be any worse? We'll spend the whole time wishing that our lives were back on track. But until then, it's Pirate Survivor. We can all be glad for that. It's the Purple Rock Whatever Podcast, our mateys.
Ahoy, and welcome to the Pirate Rock Pirate Podcast. Arr. My name is Andy. I'm embarrassing the heck out of my co-hosts Emma and Matt.
I'm not doing this. I'm
logging
off. Nope, we're not. Nope, not happening. I'm out.
The pirate theme season of Survivor.
I can't
What do you
breathe.
think, Christopher? Hey, Halloween is this weekend, and we are ready.
Onion! He's
Onion,
a
are you ready for
vampire!
Halloween? Or should I call you Onion Claw? Dracula.
Onion's giving me big banicula
Banicula, yeah, he's like
vibes, with the
Banicula.
guinea pig. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you knew what I was talking about.
Of course I knew Banicula.
Wait.
Everyone is.
I don't
I'm
know
now
who-
noticing that you guys didn't dress up. I thought we were doing a thing. Oh man, this is embarrassing for me.
Is that the sorting hat, Christopher?
I just want to make it quick.
Well, is it? You could answer her question. Though.
Yes.
Yes.
It is.
What house are you?
I actually am a Hogwarts. I
But
went on to.
But which house in Hogwarts?
I forgot.
Yeah, it's been a while since we read or watched those. Whatever the important one is, not one of those loser three or the evil one.
Gryffindor.
There's the one.
Yeah, Gryffindor. I'm just the whole thing.
I'm really glad
We
that
watched
that's
Survivor
fine.
last night, didn't we, Christopher? I feel like you were actually watching Onion more than you were watching Survivor. Is that accurate? Yeah.
I can't blame him.
Oh yes, I also have props.
Oh my god.
Well, you know, sometimes we have to dress up for Halloween. Should we take that off? I mean, we could take it off. Well, not all. Definitely not all.
Please do go.
All right, Survivor. Christopher? How about you and Onion go get ready for bed?
Like your child survivor.
Yeah. Well, the third one. If there's one more, you know, some people name their kids after survivors. I'll just name him that, and then his name would be alliterative.
This is my baby, Kagaya.
We might need to edit this one. All right, Christopher. We're gonna start talking about the TV show that this podcast is about.
Listeners, I just want to tell you, if you're only listening to the
Okay.
podcast, I do have to recommend at least the first couple minutes of the video. You'll know
Yeah, the
why.
first
once
30
you-
seconds is.
Then you're fine. Then you're
Yeah,
fine.
and then you can go back to listen to us, just like you always want to.
Okay, Christopher, it's time for you. And
You know,
Onion to
I
lead.
know that usually we have faces made for a radio, so it's a good thing we have a podcast.
Bye. Bye,
Bye, bud.
Onion.
Have a good night.
Happy Halloween!
Happy
Happy
Halloween. I can't believe I got so brutally owned for a question.
In 2 days.
Yes,
You're right, in 2 days. Just like, I want to make this quick. Okay.
All right. You guys actually want to talk about the episode?
I guess.
No, pretty much.
You really put us in the mood.
All right, so this episode we actually had a little bit of a twist in terms of the way it was going. It certainly seemed like it was going
Besides
to
your
be
outfit.
Sean all the way because he really sucks in a way that frankly I didn't remember. Largely because I just did not remember Sean, but he sucks.
Yeah, he's kind of Austening it up this episode, if that's a word.
Did Sean suck today?
Yeah.
This week.
I honestly thought about putting it, but I figured we're just going to cover it anyway. But a bunch of things happen, and Trish goes home instead. So where do we think it all went wrong for Trish?
Probably when she started thinking, hey, maybe we should get Rupert out rather than Sean.
And I think more specifically, not realizing who were the safe people to talk to about that.
Yeah.
It was let's get everyone to vote out Rupert instead of just.
Well, frankly, though, but not even everyone. And I think that's part of the problem. She really only discussed it with 2 people. And of that, she shot a good solid 50%. Because they very specifically did not discuss it with Krista because Sandra told them not to. And then left it to, John to tell Sean at like the last moment.
Which is an interesting choice.
Yeah, John obviously thought he had more control than he did there. But I mean, the real problem is I think they didn't tell Krista because I think it's obvious that Krista's close to Rupert. I think that's obvious. But I would have thought it was obvious that Sandra was too. So.
Yeah, and I think that speaks well of Sandra. That that they thought it was. And frankly, it's interesting because in the scene that we see, she doesn't really give a confirmation. I think it's eventually she kind of lets on that like she's kind of going along with them. But like when they ask her what she thinks about it, she doesn't say yes. She doesn't agree. She says Krista would never go for it, almost as though it's like her way to get them to like, let's stop talking about this.
Right.
And then when they don't, she doesn't say no. But I don't know if she very wholeheartedly said yes either.
Yeah, and I don't know if she was a strong no when she's listening to that. I don't know if she was listening to that and being like, no way that's going to happen. I think it was I need to think about this before I commit one way or the other.
But what's interesting is, like, was Trish wrong about anything she was saying?
The one thing that she said that I think she was wrong about is she said, I'm worried that Rupert will win challenges because of his strength in the post-merge.
Well, I don't know why I can understand her thinking that.
Yeah, I mean,
he has
really
been the defining factor for most of the challenges thus far.
I guess that's true, but I think just from a kind of like more seasoned Survivor watcher perspective, the type of strength that Rupert has is typically very helpful in group challenges and not very helpful in solo challenges.
That's definitely true now, but I don't know if that was as true at the time. I mean, we see Colby, win a ton of challenges.
I don't think Colby and Rupert have
true,
like the same type of strength. Like it's like there's a general athleticism and then there's a strength. Rupert is strong, but I don't know if he's athletic.
He's a decent swimmer.
He is.
Yeah, he's pretty good at diving. So
especially because he's from Indiana.
Like, I don't think Matt's wrong. It's probably unlikely that Rupert is going to go on a complete, immunity tear. But it's not, I think, wrong to expect him to be a threat in challenges, especially in that era of Survivor. It is nowhere near as puzzle heavy. That said, a lot of the early ones, even the ones that Colby won, were kind of rando. Like they would have, like shoot a cannon, which they already did this episode. But like, throw a boomerang, that sort of thing. Probably not going to do that this season. But like,
it'd be weird if they did, but
it would be a little
bury some treasure.
Yeah. But what's weird is like everything she was saying and the way that she was saying it is exactly how modern survivors think, right? Like the very idea that she would weaken her tribe and attack this guy now felt wrong to some of the people that playing, obviously Rupert being one of them, but no, Sandra and Krista. But now it would just be like, well, sure, that's what we were all planning on doing anyway.
So I think the problem with it, and this is something I think we criticize in Modern Survivor, is one, playing the post-merge game pre-merge. Though at this point, I think it's okay to actually think about that because we're close to the merge. Everyone thinks the merge is about to come soon. But I think the real issue with this move that for me was like, I don't understand this, is that it seems the people that Trish is closer to are not John and Sean. It's Sandra and I would assume Krista, and who are then close to Rupert. That seemed like the four. And like when they first went to Tribal and Burton got voted out, like that was the core alliance, that was together. So it's not that Rupert had to, that he was going to be someone to vote out in the post-merge. It's that I don't know why you would target your own sub-alliance now. Yeah. That's the part that I kind of was like, that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
I think this is something.
No, you go ahead, Em. Sorry.
When people talk about like people being game bots and that sort of thing, instead of it being someone who's just like an over analytical and like a nerd, so they just decide like, oh, that's a nerd, they must be a game bot. I think it's more like viewing, and we talk about this when fans make suggestions too. It's viewing these people as like chess pieces instead of like focusing on the relationship and the social game that's involved. Is she's so focused, Trish is so focused on the fact that like Rupert will win at the end, which is absolutely true. You can totally see that he would win in a landslide, but is forgetting, she's still got to get there. And who is she going to get there with? And who is she connected to? Who will keep bringing her along?
Right.
And is that John and Sandra, like, and then to not even try to bond with Sean and like get him on board is like weird. To let Jonny Fairplay be the guy
The
who's
Sean
that
whisperer.
connection,
Yeah, it's
makes her less valuable in this new group she's trying to create when she had a group already.
Yeah, it was a big swing without like practicing her swing beforehand. Like she hadn't done any setup. It was just like, it's hours before tribal council. She's like, and like the show had at least set up that like Trish has been the one noticing that Rupert and like the connection he had with the other tribe could be a little dangerous. So they do that, but it doesn't feel like there had ever been a discussion amongst many people, maybe any people, of when are we going to do something about Rupert? It was just suddenly like, well, we're going to tribal council again. It's time to make a big move. And it's almost like in modern parlance, this would be her I need my resume moment.
Yeah.
But it's way too soon. And like these kind of moves right here are why, many years ago, I talked about you don't play, you don't make the post-merge pre-merge. Now, interestingly, I don't agree with that anymore because I think modern Survivor just has thrown away like the whole phases of,
the game,
tribe strength and, alliances moving forward, that it now, I guess you just attack anybody at any point. And the things will reconfigure and combine and you have to be that way. But yeah, Rupert should have been viewed as an asset to her. It should have been somebody like a shield that helped bring her and her alliance on, and you undermine him as throughout. So you form another part and you're like, yeah, we can use Rupert, but we're not going to go to the end with him. And you make sure like everybody there has no intention of going to the end with him. But I do think probably the worry is maybe he wouldn't be that because of his relationship with Morgan. I think that's what scared her. She thinks that they're going to try to merge tomorrow, probably. And at that point, maybe she won't be able to get rid of Rupert because the other tribe has the same plan as her.
Maybe, only, I think one thing you have to consider, and Emily kind of brought this up, is, you have to consider just, people as people. She's thinking about like Rupert has bonds with the other tribe, and she's thinking about how that could make, Rupert work with the other tribe, but it also, would it make sense for Rupert to work with the other tribe? If he flips to their tribe, suddenly he's at the bottom of that totem pole. And so how does that make sense to him? And if he has bonds with them, he can help you flip one of them if you have even numbers, which guess what? Right now you do. You're 6, you're 5'5", right? Yeah, 5'5".
Correct.
So, you might need someone who can flip someone to get someone over and break what could be a tie right now. Why not use Rupert?
Unless you're more worried that he's going to be the one that flips.
But again, how does that make sense for his game?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately scoreboard tells us she made a poor move.
Right, yes.
But also, like, yeah, she clearly did not know the mood of the people. She misread Rupert and the way he operates, which I'm not quite sure how you do that. He's not exactly subtle.
Because I wanted to say real quick, sorry, that not only is it just like, oh, he'd be at the bottom with Morgan, Rupert has made it very clear how much he cares about like the tribe and Drake and sure, he throws himself into a theme, so maybe at the merge he'll really be like, well, we're all one. But like, or you saw he had the chance to like take a shower and was like, nah, I gotta go home. I gotta be with my people, my Drake people. So I just don't know that that's how he's going to view it. Sorry, Andy, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's all right. What are we doing here now?
Take this pen.
Well, I'm glad you interrupted my show for this. Thank you. I have it.
Okay then.
Good night.
Also, can I take one of your comics to read?
Yes.
Okay. So I wanted.
All right. I should ask him to lock it on his way out.
I feel like we gotta at least know what the pin is. I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat.
An Avengers pin. I don't know why it was important that I had it right now.
It was very
other
important.
than he decided he had not gotten enough screen time.
Mood.
Yeah, I should just talk over him, and then like he could be like everybody else. But sadly, that is not how real life works. Just this fake podcast life. Yes. But yeah, no, I just watching it this time really struck me that this felt like a very modern move at a time when it wasn't going to go over well, and you saw that tension. You saw, I mean, somebody like John, who I think very much wants to push forward and make moves, whether they are smart or not. Pushing up against, I think it like the concept of it like offended Sandra. Not only why would you do that? We need him, but also he's my alliance. Why? Like she's not. She's smarter than Trish, frankly. Yeah. She knows that this isn't going to work, and she tries gently to talk her out of it without reeling her hand, and then she has to make a move. So then we get to
one
tribal
thing about
council.
John. Can I just say one thing about John real quick here? I actually think that getting out Rupert would kind of make sense for John, because if you think kind of about like John's place in the tribe, like if he's part of a move to get at Rupert, suddenly the balance of the tribe shifts, and he's not like the swing vote that gave them power. Suddenly he's like in the middle of the sub alliance that's in control. So for him, I think it would make sense to get rid of Rupert, but that's only if he had the numbers.
That's right, and keep Sean, I suppose, would be
and keep Sean.
But I mean, it's one thing to note is that it seems like John and Rupert are getting along pretty well. Like I think. Yeah. And something that actually shocked me watching it this time and not remember. Who knew that Jonny Fairplay would be the one complaining about somebody's work ethic?
That was so funny.
Just did not remember that at all. But,
no, which I think says more about John. I mean, Sean. Rhyming
They're
names.
the P. Diddy Alliance.
Yeah. No, I think it says more about Sean than it does about John there.
But yeah, so we get to tribal council, and Sandra has this brilliant, secondary blindside happening, but they just kind of mostly spill the beans, and I think some of that speaks to the fact that what you're gonna do. There's not a huge reason to blindside people in this era of Survivor, other than it's fun and more interesting. But when they're leading up to it, like Rupert tells Sean and tells Sean to tell them that they're with him. But then he just immediately starts talking about how he knows half the tribe wants to get rid of him. And then Sandra basically seems to be saying that that she's not voting for Rupert is from basically what she's saying. Did you guys kind of get that impression? I mean, obviously we know what's happening both because they told us and because we've seen this before. But when you're watching that, do you feel like they've kind of revealed that it's not going to be the way that Trish thinks it's going to be, or the way that John's going to think it's going to be?
Well, what's weird is it seemed like John and Trish knew something was up with what Sandra was saying, but didn't seem to connect the math that was bad news for them, because their reaction was almost, especially Jonny Fairplay, almost seemed like they're sort of laughing, as if oh, Sandra, she is out of the loop, which it's you're the one who brought her into the loop, so I feel like you need to put a little more thought into what's happening here.
Yeah, and it's impossible to know what's real, what's edited, but it felt like at one point while Sandra was talking, John drops his head, he knows that it's not going to go that way. But he still votes for Rupert, right? So, that suggests that maybe he didn't. The one thing I would wonder is this is the era when you don't talk to each other, you only talk to Jeff. And so even if he has a strong impression that it's not going to be Rupert, that Sandra is no longer with them, he doesn't know who it is. All he knows is that they were lying about it being Sean, and he's probably expecting Rupert to be voting Sean. and that it's or that it's Trish. So I could see him sticking with his Trish vote, even if he thinks that it's no longer, or sorry, his Rupert vote, even if he doesn't think, because why would he think to flip to Trish? But basically, do you think that John knew something was up, or am I reading too much into that?
I think you're reading too much into it. I don't think he knew something was up.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I read that like head enhancing as him like laughing at Sandra and like being like, what is she talking about? Which again is dumb because it's not like they didn't tell. If it was Krista, maybe, but it's like they told Sandra the plan. So, but that's on him for being dumb. Also, I would love to talk about the fact that Trish actually voted for Rupert with a B.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Wait, I missed that part.
Yeah, she fully spelled it Rubert.
While calling him Rupert,
Right.
which is like, you clearly know the sound it's supposed to make. Do you not know what letters represent sounds?
And the crazy thing is because you could see maybe it like would be a dyslexic thing, but it was capitalized.
The B was capitalized.
I think so. I
don't
could be
believe
remembering
actually.
wrong.
I believe it was like, I think it was a big circle, but with an
Maybe.
ascender.
There's something. It was
I'll
weird.
watch it all again later. But it's just,
This
I
is the
feel like
important stuff. We
Yeah.
need the answer here, people.
Critical.
if this was an episode now, like if this vote flips like that,
yeah,
everybody's whispering it. Probably as soon as Rupert starts talking, but definitely when Sandra starts saying it, I think.
I mean, maybe there are times when people are just bullshitting, and you have to be like, "Were they bullshit? Is this actually what
Sure,
they feel?"
and that's
or is
why you
this-"
start whispering.
Yeah, I guess
Well, and then
true.
that's what I think is interesting about the whole whisper era. They start whispering, but I don't think anything changes. I mean,
feel like
maybe
It occasionally
maybe
does.
John votes for Trish now that he knows it's happening, but I don't think Trish doesn't go home.
Oh, sure, not at all. It was just kind of weird that, like, if somebody knew, I don't know whether he did. I'm not also inclined to give John that much credit. But if he knows, there's really not much he can do either way other
Right.
than guess. And what I'm thinking is, like, did anybody ever change their vote at tribal council back in that era? Maybe, people in, like, Pagong just because they didn't care at all and something could have happened then. Except the tribal council in the first season was basically nothing.
Right.
And it's like, I think at that point you're locked in because what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about John is, like, he might not have picked it up because he's freaking loaded all the time. He's just drunk all the time. We have textual evidence that supports this. He's not operating at, I wouldn't say full capacity, except that I don't know what his full capacity is anyway. So, like,
it's possible that they're out, right? Like, do you think they've conserved that rum to last this that long?
It's also possible that, like, he hid some away just for himself.
Or maybe
Why
he's
is
hitting
the
some of
rum
that
gone?
mold from the treasure chest.
Or no one else is drinking except for him, which at this point I would also believe.
Right, like at this point they've realized that now that they don't have full stomachs, and also now that they don't have full stomachs as much as they did that first night with all that chicken, maybe he doesn't. Also, he seems like he'd be a lightweight.
They would have full stomachs this week because they got a big reward.
They
That's
did.
true. That's true.
It's actually surprising when they
fan,
won,
sure.
because I didn't quite remember who won the reward challenge. It's like, well, then how did they lose the immunity challenge? Like, how did the underfed team win? Because they're heroes, that's why. But before we get into that,
Willpower, baby.
let's ask the important question we ask every week. Did Osten suck this week?
Yes.
Yes.
Why did Osten suck this week?
Because he
Well,
wanted to
that's
chop
the-
off Pelican Pete's head.
Hey, I was going to say, that's the next topic. We're talking about Pelican Pete, and it's obvious that's why he sucked this week.
Yeah, I mean, look, the challenge he underperformed in comparison to others, but at this point he might be like ravaged with infection, whatever. But yeah, wanting to kill a bird because of his own insecurities and fear, you suck, Osten. And not only does he suck from our perspective, it's pretty clear that everybody in his tribe, because of that, it's like, man, you suck, Osten.
Yeah, and it's definitely, you could definitely see kind of like the turning point with the other people in their tribe where they're like, man, this guy, just like, I can't deal with him anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, not only like are you ruining like what was a fun moment for everyone, it also just shows like, why have we been carrying this guy who's like afraid of every element of this experience?
Yeah.
Right. I think it was Rhino, who's pointing out all these things he doesn't like. Then he's like, why are you out here? Like, what are you doing? I mean, I don't, I'm afraid of birds too, man, but you don't need to kill them for that.
Yeah. I mean,
And I love, though, I have to say, I love the vagueness of like, well, I don't like animals around. I've been bitten by a couple of animals, and I'm like, I'm gonna need to know what ones that make you worried about the pelican. Like,
yeah.
You sound like you're from Boston based on the accent, so I feel like that's a city. And
I don't think they have a lot of pelicans up there. I might be wrong about that.
Hang out outside. Like,
seagulls,
does he hate a seagull? I get that. What?
Yeah, well, seagulls are assholes.
Yeah.
So.
Anyone who has, I grew up by the beach. I hate a seagull. They are the worst. Yeah. But so like I get that energy, but I don't think you need to be like, because it was clearly bothering the tribe mates for him to be like, especially Rhino, to be like sharpening the machete near the bird.
Yeah. I mean, it was pissing off all of them. They're like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. I mean, first of all, it's just silly, but it's also just ridiculous. It's like, what are you doing? First of all, the bird doesn't understand what that means. Yeah. You're not sending a message to that bird. It is, you're just doing that to make yourself look tough. And everyone around you is like, the bird's funny. Like, it is fun. Like, they were joking around. It's a very likable moment for everyone else, and then Osten's out there just acting like an asshole.
Yeah, and also you're full of shit. You're not doing anything to that bird.
Yeah. He's scared of the bird. He's literally scared of the bird.
Close to it.
Yeah.
Osten sucks. Anything else we want to talk about our good friend Pete?
This kind of leads me to a topic that we have a little further down, but the Pelican moment is the most likable moment that Morgan has been on this show. And it kind of is the moment where you kind of like, I think at least get behind them as a likable tribe, especially because you got Drake and they're kind of melting down, and, like you're getting a lot of like Sean this episode, who's an idiot, and John, who is very annoying. And you're just kind of like, yeah, maybe I am rooting for Morgan here. And, my big take that no one might be expecting is, and that this episode convinced me of, is the most likable people on Morgan are Rhino and Tawana. And it's all about how they react to the Pelican, we
didn't think you thought Savage was likable. We just thought you wanted to be him.
I don't have to want to be Savage.
Yeah, I mean, it started last week with the getting blessed, or maybe 2 weeks ago, but no, it was who knows? Time means nothing anymore. But being blessed by Rupert. Once Rupert gave them the seal of approval, they started to seem better. This week, I think it starts with the Pelican, and then it continues with Fairplay being at their camp, because Fairplay is the antagonist of the season. It's just starting, but you're seeing it. I mean, and you get this episode, he makes the sin of trying to get out Rupert. But I mean, he was a dick, right? So and some of it was funny, but especially the way being such a fucking pissant just ticks every nerve for Savage. It's just like
I love that. It's honestly my favorite part of Savage is how angry he is at John. He's just like, I hate that guy.
Like silent rage.
I love that he calls him at camp. He refers to him as Big John, and in confessional he calls him Little John.
There's also the great moment when John shows up and he gives the confession. He's like, John's really behaving himself. And then like 2 seconds later, he's like, I hate this guy.
Yeah, and you can see like Savage trying to keep it together. It's like, oh yeah, I don't mind some trash talk going here there, but it's like, no, you hate
it is eating at you, dude. It is eating at you.
It is just such this perfect contrast, and I think that we can really just cinch now that Morgan is the likable underdogs is when Fairplay pulls that bullshit of, well, technically 7 in a row. And that's not the way that technically works. No. Technically nothing. Technically you lost no matter what.
Technically you lost.
You could say is you might have lost 7 in a row if we didn't let you win, but we don't know what would have happened.
Right.
Just you guys deciding to lose isn't technically a win for you guys.
Yeah. And again, just like the way he says it is like all the more aggravating. Like,
oh yeah, I just wish like as soon as he says it, just like a whoosh camera to Savage, because you could just see it. But we needed to see it even more. He was just fuming, like fire was coming out of his nostrils and eyes as soon as what? Because this was like a central moment in the mythology of like Morgan for Andrew Savage.
Yeah.
So it is fun that, Fairplay kind of took it away. But it also, I think, helps, now that tribe that was boring and sucky, now it's like, man, fuck this pissant. Team Morgan.
Yeah.
Also, my husband hates Jonny Fairplay so much, and it's hilarious.
I mean, he's not alone. I mean,
yeah,
he's
but
very hateable.
it's great because I'm like, yes, connect emotionally to the show. Join us.
I mean, I actually really enjoy what he brings to the season, even though I don't like him. Like, I like someone who is antagonistic in the way that he is, because I like someone that can bring out like emotions in other players, like Savage in this episode. That's what I want to see from an antagonist.
It brought something to that scene that has been lacking since like the first time when Sandra was there. Otherwise it's kind of been perfunctory. Oh, sorry, we kind of need to do this. But him and on his best behavior still, but dripping with slime and doing that. Oh my God, it's just. And what does it do? It motivates Morgan, or at least narratively, because the big victory. I don't care. I knew, obviously we all know it's coming, and it's been done before. Like I watched Australia just a few months ago. But man, it's fucking awesome when Savage wins that challenge.
Also, I just have to say, so the Pelican Pete thing, I mentioned that 13-year-old Emma watching this was like, oh man, Rhino is so cute. And then the Pelican Pete thing definitely helps that. 30-year-old Emma, this challenge is Savage. It's a lot to handle. It works.
They should do this challenge more often, shouldn't they? Like, it's awesome.
It's a good challenge.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, like, they had to fix it from Australia, and it's clear they did, because that bar is pretty thick. Like, Australia, it snapped across, Mike's back. But, yeah, and I think, like, I wonder why they don't do it. It seems like it's a challenge you could do anywhere. I
feel like there's been a lot of challenges this season that I'm like, this is a good challenge. They should keep doing that. But it's like, or we could have an obstacle course that ends in a puzzle.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if that's the issue. Is just that like they try now to make challenges a little more like fair, so that different kinds of competitors. But it's like, man, you have a lot of them. I'm okay with one being about raw strength, and sure, that might favor a certain type of male. But like Krista got to look super awesome in this challenge.
Krista got up to 160.
Badass.
Yeah, that was as much as Osten had. That was what Savage was keeping on him the entire time. I mean, now Savage kept it there for longer, but that's more than Rhino had. That's more than Sean had. She did great.
Yeah, so I think it's like
crushed it.
And like the other people do have stuff to do, right? Like I like the decision making of like deciding who gets it, which I think is different than in Australia. I think it just was being periodically put on. I can't quite remember. So there's like enough going on for the rest of the tribe, and it's like there's a lot of tribe challenges. One that is about this is a nice change of pace, and it's such easy drama. It's this tension of, are they going to hold it or are they going to not? And it's definitive. It's not hand slipped off a pole or all this. You have to give up, or it has to give in.
Shoulder the load, as you would.
I think there definitely is enough strategy around it, because if it was just strength and like evenly dispersed, Rupert Rupert probably wins that. But because
they loaded
Morgan
him up
knew
early
to just pile it all on him and then spread it out, that it left Krista as the last person standing on that tribe, which was an advantage.
Right. And actually, I think, with Morgan, where they had the three guys, Rhino, Osten, Savage, who frankly, like, were all pretty, like, you look at them and, well, you think Austin's the strongest, like, the three of them are not that far apart. Whereas you look at the other tribe and it's like, okay, so we got to get, Rupert obviously is carrying the most here. Like, the strategy on those other three might have been spread it out for longer. So they're all carrying some weight for a long time. So it starts to wear on them. Whereas, with Rupert, it's like, got to get Rupert out early. He can carry so much. You got to get him out early.
You got to make him carry a lot of weight for as long as possible. And the only way you can get length of time is by starting early. Yep. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And it's was also kind of interesting is that like Austin's gym weight, like this is like the weights you'd actually do, still didn't help. It was still the dad strength.
Yeah, still the dad strength.
And I think it's like,
The DILF strength.
yeah, I think it was legs though, because like Savage's quads were just ripped that whole time, man.
Yeah, they
yeah,
sure
like
were.
and like you can tell he's spent, and it feels, especially the way like Survivor wants it, like this was like a matter of will, even though it's like sometimes your muscles just give out. But that's what it feels like, and it feels like a big crescendo moment for the now underdog tribe. And I think all of this, the stuff with the Pelican, them winning this one, pissant Jonny, the blessing of Rupert, is why we didn't remember how awful Morgan was.
Yeah.
It's because they've looked good these past three. Now that we
Yes.
kind of were looking at a different eye, it's like, yeah, okay, but they still suck in so many ways. They're still the ones that almost drowned without Rupert's help.
Yeah.
But
And
it's just something
and
like
Austin
that.
still stinks. Austin's still the worst. Like Austin just still sucks. So.
And I think this challenge helps with that moment. And yeah, I love that Krista, was able to shine. I mean, she was they were never going to win. They still had to knock out two dudes on the other side, but
yeah,
she looks better than Sean. She looks better than Austin. So I mean,
And
imagine
it's
like a
nice if
Natalie
you're going to
Anderson
be the
doing this.
person
Like, it
to
doesn't have to
fall.
be about dudes, right?
Yeah, and like that, if you're going to be the person to fall, it's good that it's like no one's going to blame her, for that, because she
Right.
did so much more than
yeah.
everyone.
And I mean, and something else about this challenge, why don't they still do it? Like they could do this in like a 3-tribe season. You don't
totally.
want a lot of people on the tribe to do this. Do this like, as like one of the first challenges on a 3-tribe season. Everyone's fresh and it's just like, oh boy, we need strength. And and I think it just kind of it's like, oh wow, like this is a challenge that we weren't expecting, or I don't know, like it's just
some of the challenges this season, while they're awesome, it's like, well, it's probably like the water thing. Like it sounds like for a lot of reasons, like why don't they do this challenge anymore?
Water.
Usually it's because it's like the water in Fiji just is not reliable enough for us to do something like that. Like the one where they're all carrying bags and walking in a circle around the water. I think that Kirkhofer has kind of come out and said, yeah, we just can't do that because sometimes the tides are just too crazy. But no,
that's another good one though.
Yeah, it is. This, you could do this anywhere, so bring it back.
Yeah.
So the story of the season often has been Rupert. You got a first time viewer with you. Is he still big into Rupert?
He likes Rupert. He is definitely like, so I asked when, I'll always, when like the vote is coming up, like, okay, who do you think it is? Who do you want it to be? So it's like, he said who he thought it would be Trish, it's going there. He wanted it to be Trish versus Rupert, but he said he would have voted out Rupert. I think at first when they were bringing it up, and like the only other season he's seen is Go Wrong. He's like, when he was first bringing it up, they were asking, he was like, oh, it's way too soon to go after Rupert. You got to go like maybe right before the merge. And I was like, they usually merge at 10. It was like, oh, well then, they should do, which was funny. Just seeing that. But yeah, he is still very much, he thinks that Andrew Savage will be the winner, and he loves Krista. He's just all about Krista. That he says he feels like Sandra has been kind of taking a back seat lately, and that maybe that might not be bad strategy, but he just thinks there's more charismatic people, and apparently that is Krista.
So I'd say at this point in the season, Rupert is way to go out on a limb. Rupert is the big featured character. He's possibly the biggest star the show has ever had, but like the episode still gave him a lot of time, and I think really favored him. Like I think the show acted like it was their front that they would go after Rupert. And I think a big part of it is, like they give him Rupert and the snake. Like this show just really wants to make sure that everybody loves Rupert.
Yeah. What did you guys think of Rupert and Balboa and that part?
Balboa.
It's sweet enough. So this is one of those where it's difficult to talk about without, it's not quite a spoiler. Now that I kind of am around and have seen the whole thing, it's easier to be a little cynical about that now. Where it's like, oh yeah, Rupert really likes to play it up. But I'll tell you, when I first watched it, I ate that shit up.
Okay, fair enough.
And also, I think, you're bored out there. And it's, a living creature that you can attach to. Like I did definitely, even now when Sean is like, like at first I was like impressed that Sean actually seemed to show like some sympathy. I was like, oh, that's too bad. And then in confessional, he's like, I don't know why he cares. I was like,
Yeah.
it's a
It's
baby
like, Sean, you
snake,
suck. Stop doing that.
man. And like, I don't know. I'm someone who gets like very attached to things. I mean, I always say, and people always roast me for this, but like, I did not grow up with pets, and I don't really have interest in having them. And I was like, they're gonna die before you do, so it just sounds bad. Like just
Rudy, cover your
setting
ears. You
yourself
didn't
up
hear that.
for tragedy. Sorry, Rudy. But yeah, I mean, you guys know this. Like, I mean, I did a jack-o'-lantern and it got moldy really quickly, and I got really sad about it.
You did tell us about that. You did tell us that.
It was such a cute little ghost.
Didn't even make it to Halloween.
This is why she doesn't even have plants.
Yeah,
I mean, plants.
honestly, now I'm glad you didn't do the Burning Elmo jack-o'-lantern. It just wouldn't have lasted long enough had you done
That would
it.
have been tragic. Yeah. And even before that, because there's like this cute little perfect pumpkin, I'm like, what if I carve it badly and mess it up? So yeah, I can see someone being sad that a baby snake died, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and like we see this on the show that people, form attachments to the animals that they are given. At least this was one that wasn't supposed to be a food source. It's
True.
much more annoying when
That
it's a
is true.
chicken. But Balboa is no Pelican Pete. Let's just keep it real. All right, I think that's about it for this episode, huh?
Yeah. Should we do the updog and then spoiler section?
Yes. So the updog
Now
this
let's
week.
mix it up.
Okay.
The updog for this week is themed because I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you remember from a few minutes ago when it was discussed, but Halloween is actually tomorrow for the people listening to this. Now, I don't know if that means anything in 2020 for most people, but usually it does. So I figured a good theme question would be what Halloween costume are you most proud of? Obviously, we already know my answer.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the winner, Andy. It's 100% the
Oh
winner.
my god. Oh my god.
Matt, let's start with you.
Sure. So as a kid, my dad did a costume where I was dressed up as the Philly Fanatic. So.
Oh.
Oh my god. So is he going to do a costume for somebody in your family, possibly you, about Gritty?
No, I don't think my dad's as into Gritty. My dad is now
Make your nephews be gritty.
So,
Make your nephews be gritty.
Yeah, I do have to now make my nephews be Gritty. That's the answer.
All of them.
Yeah. So that's fair. That's fair. I do got to do that. So.
I mean,
Yes.
I didn't mean to imply that Gritty had necessarily surpassed the Philly Fanatic.
He hasn't. It's
I just-
he. It's. I understand the internet's love for Gritty. I love Gritty. Okay, but there is a history. There is a consistency. There is a longevity. It is like saying that Luka Doncic is already better than LeBron James. Is all
I
I'm saying.
feel like the Fanatic, though, probably has more like problematic moments in his history, whereas Gritty
However,
is a king.
However,
this is true, and we do stand Gritty, but I do have to give my respect to the Fanatic
for Tommy
for
Lasorda.
beating. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for knowing where I was going with it. I mean,
It's
I believe
the greatest
I
moment in
told you,
Fanatic
it's like,
history.
it's that meme of the fists where it's like
Yeah.
Phillies fans, Giants fans, Fanatic
Pissing
beating
off
up
Tommy Lasorda. Yeah.
Fuck Tommy Lasorda.
All right, Emma, what's your answer?
All right. Well, first, Matt, you prefaced with "as a kid." Did that mean you had as an adult one that you wanted to give? I just want to give you that opportunity.
No. I just want to
in case.
specify that my dad did not make me that costume when I was an adult.
Honestly, I
was a
would have
small
loved
child.
that.
I also would have loved it, but my dad.
You be the Fanatic while your nephews are the Gritty.
That'd be
Find
good.
out
Yeah.
Halloween 2021.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. I, however, am gonna do as a kid and an adult because I'm gonna be honest. I've had some great Halloween costumes. Because my mom would often make mine when I was a kid, and then I'm just very clever and creative as an adult. But in second grade, which for me was like 97, Beanie Babies were all the rage. And I was a Beanie Baby for Halloween. And it was very easy to do because my friend had a Dalmatian costume that she wore in kindergarten that I was able to wear in second grade because I was very, very tiny. God damn it, Andy put his eye patch back on. And my mom made like the tie tag, you know, the TY tag, and like did the gold paint and all of this stuff, and then even laminated it so it looked like a tag protector. Now, you guys are not of the Beanie Baby generation, so I don't know if you know about tag protectors, but it was like, because, you know, Beanie Babies were going to be worth something someday, you would buy little plastic sheets for the tags to keep them safe. So my mom went so far as to do that. And there were a couple teachers who were also Beanie Babies that year, and my costume was definitely better than theirs because of how good my mom did with the tag. And then best as an adult, you know, I've had some good ones, but I think the best is when I was 22, I was Daria for Halloween, and that was pretty great. And I tragically have no pictures because it was before I had it was in that like this weird nebulous time where it was before I had a smartphone, but it was after everyone took pictures of everything and posted it on Facebook. So I don't have a photo of it, which makes me really sad.
Quick question. When did you stop being Daria?
Well, this was before I wore glasses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't get glasses till 25. So I actually had to buy plastic glasses.
We knew you pre-glasses and glasses.
That's true.
Each other way too long.
It's disgusting. It makes me sick. But yeah, so I actually had to buy like fake plastic glasses, and now I just have, but yeah, obviously I didn't have to do my hair. That was easy.
So I don't really do the adult costume party thing. I've never been to one as an adult because it's not really interesting to me. Generally, parties aren't particularly interesting to me. So yeah, my best was probably as a kid. 1989, my mom made me a Joker, like a Jack Nicholson Joker costume. That was pretty good. I think I was probably in grade 7 at that point. So that was a pretty good one. And then I do dress in costumes now as an adult because of children, and we tend to do themed costumes throughout. This year, Christopher assigned us as being just spooky general characters. Okay. I'm actually going to be a ghost pirate, not just a pirate. There's an extra level to it. There will be some more stuff going on with the face.
You better start believing in ghost stories.
That's right, because you're in one.
This is my second Pirates of the Caribbean reference of the podcast.
I mean, it's appropriate for this season.
Having a normal one.
So I think in that vein, the best was when we all went as Guardians of the Galaxy the year that it came out.
That was a great one.
Because for one, it wasn't the easiest to do because Guardians of the Galaxy was an unknown property that suddenly was successful, and the stores did not exactly stock up on a whole bunch of options for an August movie that nobody really had expectations.
Not a lot of trees in there.
So I was able to get a Groot mask, and then and here's the thing: I like to try to keep mine lazy and cheap. Because we're spending it on the kids. So I had like a light brown shirt, and I threw like some wood looking cardboard plates, and then just wrapped some vines I bought from like Michael's, and it looked lazy and cheap, and that's what I was going for. It was great. Whereas Alex had the full Star-Lord that we were able to track down, and then probably the cutest is that my mom made 2-year-old Christopher into Rocket Raccoon.
It was so cute. It was really cute.
So that's probably my answer. Those are my answers right there. If anybody else, feel free in comments to let us know what Halloween costume you're most proud of, and feel free to share photos as well. This is kind of a visual thing. So Matt, your homework is to track down your Philly Fanatic photos. Is there any Polaroids? Are there any cracked or?
I might actually have it.
Yeah, I actually don't have any of the Joker, sadly.
Yeah, me neither.
But back then, we just probably didn't have any film in the camera.
Well, actually, probably are.
You know what? I think the Philly Fanatic costume is actually recycled after my sister wore it, so I might have my sister wearing it when I was something else.
We'll take it. I'm sure there are pictures of me as the Beanie Baby. The problem is they're in a box in my dad's garage, and I'm not going to be like, hey, Dad.
Yeah, you got to track this down so I can leave it as a comment for strangers.
Yeah.
But so that's do that on our website. Where's that, Emma?
I wasn't prepared. Why?
Andy,
That
it's-
website is www.purplerockpodcast.com.
You could also follow us on Twitter. What's that about, Matt?
Purple Rock Pod.
Or Purple Rock Andy, Purple Rock Emma, Purple Rock Matt. Subscribe to the various places, like, and all that on YouTube. That's it for the non-spoilery section. We are about to get into spoilers. We are going to talk about how the season ends and yada, yada, yada. Be ready, be prepared. Spoilers!
Spoiler time.
So it's interesting that he still thinks Sandra's, low-key under the radar. And, I mean, I think she is enough, but this was all Sandra. This move was completely Sandra's doing. And was it that in her first move, like strategically and not, negotiating in her own language on a challenge, I feel like we see in this very first move on Survivor kind of everything that such Sandra is. Like, it is so prototypical of who she is. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I guess really prototypical would be just her going like, well, they're not suggesting me, so I guess we're fine. But I think that's more like typical in terms of what people say about Sandra versus what she does. Although you do have that great moment at Tribal Council when she's like, well, I know it's not me. And everyone's like, yes, why would we ever vote out you, Sandra? And it's like, you fools.
See, what I think, is people say that Sandra is anybody but me, and the reason why they say that is Sandra says that that's her key to success. But I feel like it's not true, and this shows it. If it's anybody but me, she just votes out Rupert. It's just that simple. Nobody's coming after her. Sure, why not? That's the way it is. For Sandra, she hears this. She doesn't let on at all that she's not going for it. She, as I mentioned earlier, gently tries to guide it, and then it's like, okay, well then that's what you guys are doing. I'm going to do something else. And she sticks her neck out and flips the vote without anybody, I guess not anybody, but without people knowing that it's her. And I think that's where the under a radar is. Sandra works stealthily, but she works. She did more in this episode than I feel like anybody's done this season, or at the very least since, they got out Burton.
Yeah, so the thing about it is, like, once she approaches Krista and Rupert and they're like, yeah, we can vote out Trish, she realizes that, okay, well, at the least the vote's 3-3, right? If Sean sides with them, then it's 3-3. And if Sean's not coming with them, then she can just flip back. Like, she doesn't, she's in a position where, she can try to keep Rupert, who she'd prefer to keep. But she doesn't, she still has some outs there. So
well, she frequently does because, it takes 3 seasons for anybody to ever be coming after Sandra, right? Yeah. But I do think like it's misplaced, like, because why doesn't she go out? Why doesn't she take out Rupert? Trish's arguments, while we've punched a few holes of why it wasn't completely right here, aren't completely wrong either. Like, if she truly doesn't care, then why not get out Rupert? And it's because she feels loyalty to Rupert, and she feels like he's, necessary for her next part of her game. But I think loyalty is an underrated part of Sandra that I think a lot of people ignore because of her anybody but me. But frankly, that anybody but me stuff always seems to wait until the people she's loyal to are gone.
It kicks in when she's, when her starting alliance starts to get whittled away, in Heroes versus Villains. It kicked in when Boston Rob was voted out, before that.
Frankly, it doesn't even kick in then. It's usually a little while after, like they take out Rupert and she tries to exact revenge later in the season. They take out Boston Rob and she's like, okay, then I'm going to get rid of Coach. Like she's very specific and targeted in these actions and not in a, well, now I'm just going to do whatever type of way.
Right. Yeah,
well,
but
after
before
Rupert, like, she takes the revenge, but then she uses that as an opportunity to throw Krista under the bus, who is her ally, but is famously not Sandra.
Yes, that is also true.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just you kind of see it all here. She listens, she doesn't say much, and then she goes to work. And she's pretty aggressive in the way she goes to work. She's
once she decides to do something, she goes after it.
And she doesn't just like take the vote away or save Rupert. It's now, okay, Trish, now you got to go. And frankly, that's the right play. If somebody is showed this willingness to flip, then you should get rid of them. Sean's just annoying and not with you. But there's a bit of a vindictiveness to it, and to the point where she can't hide it when she's at tribal council. She's not just saying, well, this is what the group said. She's talking smack without saying the person's name. And that's another thing, like, her win has always been, underrated, right? That wasn't celebrated as a big victory. It wasn't until she got two. Frankly, it's what helped her, move forward in Heroes versus Villains as a former winner, is that she wasn't a highly regarded one, but she is not hiding. They don't know that she's making this move, but as you say, when she gets to tribal council, she is cocky enough to be like, oh no, I know it's not me. Like the standard answer that everybody's ready to give Jeff in that moment is, oh no, you always have to be, worried. It could be you anytime. And Sandra's like, oh, it's not me. And I love that about her. I love her arrogance. For an under the radar player, she seems to be out there a lot. She's the one yelling at her castmates if they get in her way. And it's what people think about her as under the radar in this era, simply because she doesn't do much in challenges.
Maybe.
Possibly. What was funny, and I told you guys this too, but so my husband, not only did he say that, but during the challenge, he's like, wait, why is Sandra sitting out? And I was like, because she's not strong. And he's like, but it's got to be stronger than Krista, right? And I just had to not say it because I was like, you'll see.
Krista's tall, height.
Yeah, I think I said I ultimately said something about she's taller and stuff. She's done pretty well in the challenges. It's couldn't say Sandra's famously terrible at challenges, and Krista is about to beast this motherfucker. So I do love that they know that you're not putting that it's oh, let's throw John because he's a man. They know John's not gonna be able to do anything.
So the thing about Sandra being under the radar is, I think it's because she's not trying to control every vote. She tries to control votes. Don't get me wrong. I believe that, and I think there is evidence for that. But she also doesn't try to control every vote. She controls a vote, and then when she sees that, but she's not the one that then leads the next vote necessarily. She waits, sees where it is, and then acts if she has to. I mean, one of her most famous moves is John and Burton go after their reward, and she just turns to them and goes, so, and that's it. Yeah. And so it's not that she doesn't she wasn't trying to control the vote before that, but she sees an opportunity and then she strikes. And people say that's under the radar because what we're, I guess, more used to from more over the radar. I don't know what the opposite of under the radar is.
On the radar, I guess, would be what it is.
Yeah, sure. It is someone who is always leading from out front. A more recent example would be Wendell and Dominic, who were very obviously leading their tribe and their and those votes the entire season, to the point where we were like, why the hell are these people so bad they can't vote out the people who everyone acknowledges is leading every vote here? So I think that's the difference.
I think Sandra gets the under the radar, tag, and frankly, edit. We talked a couple weeks ago how she was oddly not present in the first vote of Drake's season, is stereotypes. People she is able to be under people's radar because she's a woman and she's small, and so when they're looking around, we get to the second phase of the game. So she, in her first two seasons, was able to escape the most dangerous part of the game for her, due to being on tribes that allowed for that. Now nobody, they're just well, who's going to be the next target? Who is the next person we need to worry about? They don't worry about her. And that's what happened in her first two seasons. And then by the third season, that was, being the only two-time winner of the game is going to put you on people's radar. And I think that's just it, because I think, her actions, she will say whatever she wants to say. She will make whatever move she thinks is necessary. And, I'm not saying she doesn't play anybody but me. I think it's just people have misinterpreted that, in that Sandra doesn't care who goes. What it means is that Sandra's willing to vote she's willing to listen, and she will go different ways. She's not stuck to one thing or another. But even there, that tends to be once her initial plan goes awry.
But I think
because I don't know when you were ever going to get her to vote out Rupert. Like, she doesn't seem to have any intention of doing that, and obviously we can't know because it will happen, much sooner than I said. So
right,
yeah.
but I think there are people in this game who do try to control every vote. Who, if it's not like the very specific person they want, they try to make it that person. They always have to suggest their idea of the next. And I think the way Sandra sees the game is there are people that are roughly equivalent in her mind. And so if the group is going to vote for one person versus this person who she sees as roughly the same to her, why speak up? She's cool with either of them. And so
either that works for Sandra, so I don't care.
Right. And I think that is a way that's different.
Anything else?
Is there any spoiler for anyone else? I mean, I guess we should say next week we're watching 2 episodes.
Yes. Is two-parter.
We probably should have said that in the non-spoiler.
We are going to watch the entire saga of the Outcasts. Actually, one quick thought I had now that I realize
we
that
can
we're
make
here.
a note in the podcast.
Yeah.
It's 5-5-5 when we get to the Outcast challenge.
Yeah.
Is that just completely like it locked out perfectly for them? Like, what do they do if Morgan had lost?
If it was like 6-4-5?
6-4-5.
I think they still would have done it because remember, all they have to do is just, they would have sat, maybe they would have just competed with one less, or I don't know. But all you had to do, if one tribe beat the Outcast, then you're not losing someone, which is the part of the Outcast twist I really like, actually. But we'll discuss that next week.
I'm just more like structurally challenge-wise. Are they making an Outcast sit and 2 Drakes? Or
maybe.
Is it just, hey, man, if you wanted an advantage on the Outcast, you shouldn't have lost so much. But it's a kind of interesting how it worked out, especially because it did not look like this is the way it was going to work out at all. That's the challenge. The first challenge that we're going to see next week is completely balanced. No sense.
Do we think they were planning on the Outcast the entire time? I mean,
yes. They were kept without food.
Of course. You're right. Yes, of course.
Yes, I do think. I don't think that's something that you're just out there like, you know what? Let's get all those people and let's try it again. I do believe they were probably planning it.
We
all
lost
the time.
Ryan Shoulders too soon.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like I don't know if it was a huge scheme just to get Burton back. Okay. He is not really that interesting, especially since, as at least one commenter will tell us, everything this season was a scheme to save Rupert.
Yes, that is 100% true.
Apparently, they just knew. They knew that America would love this character who is unlike any character they've ever had before, so much that they needed to risk the very safety of their television show.
Yes,
to keep him on,
and do that, still do that twist, even though he ended up not getting voted out.
That's right. Yeah. Just because the Outcast could have put Rupert in danger. I'm surprised they even did it. The person fixing the game for him must have been sleeping that night. So I was sleeping off the drunk that they got for celebrating that he survived this one. When they clearly went to the 4 people and say you can't vote for Rupert.
Right.
All right. So we'll talk about that next week, unless of course the world falls apart. We don't feel like talking about anything.
Who knows what'll happen
in play? Good luck is all I can say. Good luck.
And if you're American, vote.
Oh yeah, and if you're voting by mail, don't
voting for Biden. If you're not,
yes,
vote.
Good point.
I don't care. Democracy doesn't need you, and also don't listen to my show.
And if you were going to vote by mail and you haven't done it yet, put it in a drop box.
Or a county election office.
Right, I forgot that not everyone has drop boxes. We do.
Good call. Yes, these are things I read about that my Canadian mind cannot understand.
The fact that we don't allow people to actually vote
on a piece of paper and put it in a box. It's really simple.
Yeah, but you also just decide when you're going to have an election.
Yeah, we just dodged one. We almost had an election before you guys, just because.
Okay.
The chaos.
Yeah, we do all right. All right, that's all for this week. Ahoy mateys and all of that. I'm going to play some music.